Pretty lucky, huh? Yeah. It's always tough to follow Melissa because she tells such personal stories. But I think one of the important lessons is if you do run for office, don't tell your girlfriend all the stories because she'll tell everybody all the stories. I'm so thankful that all of you have come out tonight. What I see before me is an incredible, influential, and concerned group of people who are really concerned about the future of the city of New Orleans. And, you know, I think that there's a great quote from Henry Ford that perhaps can start the night. Henry Ford, when he was starting the Ford Motor Company, that he was looking for a group of people who didn't know what couldn't be done. And in many ways, that's what we're looking for here. A group of people who don't know about what can't be done to lead this campaign and to lead this city. And I tell you what, in an effort to do that, I think to get you guys on my team, to make sure that we can do this, I should tell you a bit about myself, about my background, about what I do and what my guiding principles would be as mayor, and frankly, how we're going to win this campaign. So another quote here is Franklin Roosevelt, when talking to a young candidate, said that when you're trying to make your case, you want to be sincere, you want to be brief, and then be seated. And so we'll keep it brief and move along quickly. I got into this race because New Orleans is starved for leadership, starved for results, desperate for a change in City Hall. And, you know, I'm not arrogant enough to think that I'm the only person who fits the bill. But I've looked at the people who are running, the people who are rumored to be running, the people who are thinking about being rumored to be considering running, right? It's kind of crazy. And what's clear to me is that they can't win. They also can't lead. And the polling backs me up when I say that. You know, the polling says that residents want a fresh perspective. They want someone who has a fresh perspective. They want someone who hasn't been part of the political machine. They don't want someone who's been in politics for 20 years. But they do want someone who understands how government works. And here's the bottom line, is that when we talk about the other folks, they can't win and they can't lead. We need something different. We need real change at City Hall. And so I think the best thing for me to do is to explain my own executive experience and help you to see how I can bring that change to City Hall. You know, my background is a background of building and rebuilding. It's a background of building coalitions and building nonprofit organizations. And I came by that honestly. I learned it from my father, who's an interesting guy. He's a guy who will pick up a how-to book, for instance, and then do whatever that how-to book says to do. So, for instance, when I was a teenager, he said, let me pick up this how-to book about putting roofs on houses. And then before you know it, that summer, I was up on the roof, putting a roof on our house. He picked up a how-to book on installing an in-ground pool, and before you know it, I'm digging up the dirt and putting in a pool, right? He knows how to get things done. But that's the same process I used in rebuilding my own home after Hurricane Katrina. It's this process of building and rebuilding. Using that same process, I built 2 organizations. I had to hire staff, I had to raise millions of dollars, and we took on the tough fights in order to get things done for the city of New Orleans. So for instance, we've taken on the Road Home program, and that's a fight that we're going to win. If we're successful in that fight, tens of thousands of homeowners in New Orleans will get more money to rebuild their homes. In taking on that fight, I've been to Washington 6 or 7 times, advocating for what we needed here in the city of New Orleans. And in that process, I've had to collaborate with political leaders, with business leaders, with nonprofit leaders, with the faith-based community, with individuals, with homeowners, all these different groups in order to make sure that we can get it done. But at the same time, I had to take some tough and difficult stands. So for instance, I took a stand against Governor Blanco. She was pushing this Road Home program, and I was very clear that it wasn't doing enough. So I took a very difficult and tough stand against her. Many of you know that recently I took a tough stand against Mayor Nagin when he tried to use tax dollars to pay his own legal bills. It wasn't appropriate. I had to take a tough and difficult stand. Here's the bottom line. When it's required, when it's efficient, I can be collaborative, I can be bipartisan. But on the other end, when we need someone who's tough and who can take a real stand, I can be that leader. I can take the tough, difficult stand. That's what we need. And I also think that this process that my father uses of studying a problem, figuring out how to fix it, and then doing it is a process that can work for this city. Because far too often what we do is we look at a failing system and a failing process, and then we repeat it. We do that again. And that doesn't work. It simply doesn't work. So for instance, I heard just recently that when it comes to fixing roads here in the city of New Orleans, the city is purposely blocking off streets and making it difficult to pass on streets so that people can see that they're actually fixing the roads. Right? Try to drive down Louisiana Avenue right now. It's crazy. They're actually making it inconvenient for all of you just to show that they're possibly maybe getting something done. That doesn't make any sense. You know, look at Philadelphia. Philadelphia has a program called the SNAP program, the Strategic Action Neighborhood Program. And what happens is if you see a pothole, you call a toll-free phone number, and within 24 hours they have a crew out there fixing that pothole, getting it done, right? And they're not worried about accolades or who sees them or any of that. They're simply worried about getting things done for the citizens. In New Orleans, far too often, we slow things down for the wrong reasons, when we have the opportunity to do things the right way for the right reason. It's my position that we have to get rid of this can't do, won't do culture of leadership and really transform City Hall so that we have a can-do, will-do approach to getting things done in the city of New Orleans. And I think that that only comes from a real and true philosophy around leadership. You know, one of the books that I've read in trying to figure out how I would lead my own organizations is a book called Good to Great by Jim Collins. And what he does in this book is he looks at great companies around the country and he tries to figure out what it is about their leaders that's made them great, that's made them successful. And there are a few things that he finds to be consistent. The first is that he finds that the leaders are servant leaders, which means that they don't come in trying to get accolades and trying to get attention. Instead, they work behind the scenes and they're on the grind trying to get things done for the company. They're not trying to get a whole bunch of accolades, right? He also finds that they use what's called the windows and mirrors approach, so that they're looking outside of the window and looking towards their employees when they have success and saying, you've done a great job, and giving them credit. But when there's a mistake, they look inwardly. They look in the mirror and look at themselves and try to figure out what they can do better in order to improve the company. That's the kind of leadership that we need at City Hall. And this kind of leadership isn't anything new. For instance, when you look historically at emerging democracies, consistently you'll find that there are servant leaders. Leaders who put the needs of their community in front of their own needs. Think Nelson Mandela in South Africa, a leader who puts the needs of his country ahead of his own needs. Now, I'm not saying, of course, that I'm of the same caliber of Nelson Mandela, but I am saying that that's the kind of leadership that we have to bring here. Leadership that puts the needs of New Orleans ahead of personal interests. Now, you guys all know that we have a very difficult racial divide in the city of New Orleans. Well, we don't conquer that racial divide if we have leadership that puts themselves first, right? You have to put the interests of the city first in order to conquer that divide. As long as we're divided around issues of race and class, this will remain a city that cannot stand. We won't be able to stand if we have those divisions. So, what I promise is that as mayor, it'll be a very different approach. It's going to be an approach where we bring the best people to get the job done consistently in City Hall. And, you know, when you look at all the issues, it's kind of clear, right? We have to make a big difference on public safety. We have to have a big impact on education, on housing, you name it, right? I think in this room, we're pretty clear about what the issues are. It's not really a question about what we need to take over. We know what the problems are. The question is who? Who can take on these problems? Who can fix these problems? And I tell you that this can't do, won't do approach won't get it done. It won't happen. When you talk about real change, you have to have a real leader who's committed to leading for the people and for the city and putting the city's interests first and above his or her own. Now,